so desperate. Imagine thinking I'd move in with him. She said loud enough for everyone to hear after I showed her the keys to the place I'd rented for us. I said, "Understood," and left the bar. Packed all my things while she was still drinking with them. She came home to an empty apartment and a text. "Good news, you don't have to move in anymore." A week later, she appeared at my doorstep, crying. I, 30, male, had spent 3 months apartment hunting for us. I signed the lease that morning, picked up the keys at 2047 p.m., and texted her to meet me at the bar where our friends were gathering. I wanted to surprise her. I wanted to see her face light up when she realized we were finally moving forward. Instead, when I slid the keys across the table and told her I'd rented the perfect place for us, she picked them up, looked at them like they were trash, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, so desperate. Imagine thinking I'd move in with him. The table went silent. Someone laughed nervously. I said, "Understood," took the keys back, and walked out. While she stayed drinking with them, I drove to her apartment and packed every single thing I owned. She came home hours later to an empty space and one text from me. "Good news, you don't have to move in anymore." Maya, 28, and I had been together for 2 years. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. One of those loud rooftop gatherings, where the music was too loud and the drinks were too weak. She approached me first. She told me later she liked how I stood off to the side, watching everyone but not trying too hard to be part of it. She said it made me seem mysterious. I told her I was just tired from a double shift at the hospital where I worked as an X-ray technician. She laughed and said that was even better. For the first year, things felt easy. We spent weekends exploring the city, trying new restaurants, driving out to the coast just to watch the sunset. She worked in marketing for a tech startup, the kind of job where she was always on her phone, always responding to Slack messages at midnight, always talking about the grind. I didn't mind. I respected her ambition. She told me she wanted a life that was bigger than what her parents had, bigger than the small town she grew up in. I wanted to support that, but somewhere around the 18-month mark, things shifted. She started making jokes about my job. Little comments at first. "Must be nice to clock out at 5 and actually be done." Or, "I wish I could just take x-rays and go home." I laughed them off. I figured it was stress. Her company was going through layoffs. Her manager was a nightmare. She needed to vent, and I was the person she could vent to. That's what partners do. The jokes got sharper. We'd be at dinner with her coworkers, and she'd introduce me as the guy who takes pictures of bones. Everyone would laugh. I'd smile and change the subject. One time, her boss asked what I did, and before I could answer, Maya said, "He works at a hospital. You know, not a doctor, but close enough." I felt my face get hot. I excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection for a full minute, trying to figure out why it bothered me so much. I brought it up once. We were in her apartment, sitting on the couch after a long Friday. I told her the comments about my job were starting to hurt. She looked at me like I'd just told her the sky was green. "I'm joking," she said. "You know I'm joking, right? You're so sensitive." I nodded. I didn't want to fight. I told myself she was right. I was being too sensitive. I let it go, but the comments didn't stop. They got worse. She started comparing me to her coworkers, guys who were pulling six figures, who drove luxury cars, who wore tailored suits and talked about stock portfolios. She'd say things like, "Tyler just bought a condo in the marina. Can you imagine?" Or, "Jason's taking his girlfriend to Paris for her birthday. That's the kind of guy who knows how to treat a woman." I didn't know what to say to that. I was saving money. I was trying to build something stable. I thought that mattered. The worst part wasn't even the comparisons. It was how she dismissed my attempts to talk about the future. When I mentioned wanting to save for a house someday, she rolled her eyes. "A house? We can't even afford a decent apartment." When I suggested we start a joint savings account, she laughed. "Why would I combine my money with yours? I make twice what you do." She said it casually, like it was just a fact, not an insult. But it landed like a punch every time. Her friends started treating me differently too. At group dinners, they'd talk over me. They'd make inside jokes I wasn't part of. One of them, a guy named Brandon who worked at the same startup, would always find ways to one-up whatever I said. If I mentioned a movie I liked, he'd talk about seeing it at a private screening. If I mentioned a restaurant, he'd say he knew the chef personally. Maya would laugh at his stories and ignore mine. I started talking less. It was easier that way. The apartment hunt started because she kept talking about wanting to move in together. She said her lease was ending in 3 months, and it made sense to find a place we could share. She sent me links to apartments in neighborhoods I couldn't afford. I'd look at the rent and feel my stomach drop. I told her we needed to find something within budget, something that wouldn't drown us in bills. She rolled her eyes. "You're always so practical," she said. "Sometimes you just have to take a risk." I found a place in a quieter part of the city. A two-bedroom with hardwood floors, big windows, and a small balcony. The rent was manageable if we split it. I walked through it twice, imagining where we put the couch, where we'd hang pictures, how we'd make it feel like home. The landlord was an older woman who reminded me of my grandmother. She asked if I was moving in with my wife. I said, "Not yet, but hopefully soon." She smiled and told me she could see I was a good man. I signed the lease that day. I called Maya from the parking lot, excited to tell her. She answered on the third ring. "What's up?" "I found us a place," I said. "What kind of place?" "An apartment. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a balcony. It's perfect." There was a pause. "How much?" I told her the rent. Another pause. "That's it? What's wrong with it?" "Nothing's wrong with it," I said. "It's in a good neighborhood. The landlord's nice. I think you'll love it." "I'll have to see it first," she said. "Don't get your hopes up." I ignored the comment. I told myself she just needed to see it in person. Once she walked through the door and saw the space, she'd understand. She'd see what I saw. We'd start planning our future together. I didn't tell Maya I'd signed the lease. I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted to hand her the keys and see her face change, see her realize that I was serious about us, that I was ready to build something real. I spent the next week planning how I'd tell her. I thought about doing it over dinner, but that felt too formal. I thought about taking her to the apartment first, but I wanted her reaction to be spontaneous, unfiltered. Then I got the text from our friend group. They were meeting at a bar downtown on Friday night. Maya loved that bar. It was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and overpriced cocktails, and a crowd that always seemed to be laughing at jokes I didn't understand. I texted her and told her I'd meet her there. She replied with a thumbs up emoji. I showed up at 8:30 p.m. The place was packed. I found our group in the back corner, sitting around a high-top table. Maya was already there, halfway through a drink, laughing at something one of her coworkers was saying. She saw me and waved. I walked over, kissed her on the cheek, and sat down. She introduced me to the people I didn't know. "This is my boyfriend," she said. "No name, just my boyfriend." We ordered drinks. The conversation bounced around. Work gossip, weekend plans, someone's upcoming trip to Mexico. I waited for a lull, a moment when I could pull Maya aside or get everyone's attention, but the group was loud, and the music was louder, and every time I thought about saying something, someone else jumped in with another story. I noticed Maya was drinking faster than usual. She ordered a second drink before she'd finished her first. She was animated, laughing louder than normal, touching Brandon's arm when he made a joke. I felt a tightness in my chest but pushed it down. She was just having fun. That's what people do at bars. Finally, around 10 p.m., there was a pause. Someone asked Maya if she'd found a new place yet since her lease was ending. She shrugged. "I'm looking, but everything's so expensive. I might just renew where I am." I saw my opening. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the keys, and slid them across the table toward her. "You don't have to look anymore," I said. "I found us a place." She stared at the keys. Then she looked up at me. Her expression didn't change. She didn't smile. She didn't look surprised. She looked confused, maybe annoyed. She picked up the keys, held them in her hand for a second, then set them back down. "What is this?" she asked. "It's the keys to our new apartment," I said. "I signed the lease this week. It's perfect. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a balcony. I wanted to surprise you." The table went quiet. Everyone was looking at us. I could feel their eyes shifting between Maya and me, waiting to see what would happen next. I thought maybe she was just processing it, that in a second she'd laugh or hug me or say something that would break the tension. Instead, she looked at me like I'd just insulted her. She pushed the keys back toward me and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, so desperate, Imagine thinking I'd move in with him. The words hung in the air. Someone laughed, a short, awkward sound that died instantly. Someone else looked down at their drink. Maya's coworker, the one she'd been laughing with earlier, smirked. Brandon leaned back in his chair and took a sip of his beer, watching me like I was entertainment. I felt my chest tighten. I looked at Maya, waiting for her to say she was joking, to take it back, to do anything that would make this feel less like a public execution. She didn't. She took a sip of her drink and turned back to the group like I wasn't even there anymore. Someone tried to change the subject, asking about a work deadline. The conversation started up again, forced and uncomfortable. I sat there for another 10 seconds, feeling the heat in my face, the weight of everyone's stares. I picked up the keys. I didn't say anything else. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out. I heard someone call my name, but I didn't turn around. I pushed through the crowd, past the bar, past the people waiting for drinks, and out onto the street. The cold air hit me like a slap. I stood there for a second, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed. I thought it might be Maya. It wasn't. It was a friend from the table asking if I was okay. I didn't respond. I got in my car and sat there for 5 minutes, gripping the steering wheel. My hands were shaking. I kept replaying the moment, her voice, the look on her face, the smirk on Brandon's face. I felt humiliated. I felt stupid. But underneath all of that, I felt something else. Clarity. I drove to Maya's apartment. She lived on the third floor of an older building with no elevator and a parking lot that was always full. I used my key to get in. The place smelled like her perfume and takeout. I stood in the doorway for a second, looking around. 2 years of my life were scattered across this apartment. My clothes in her closet, my toothbrush in the bathroom, my books on her shelf, my coffee maker on her counter. I started packing. I didn't think. I just moved. I pulled my clothes off the hangers and stuffed them into garbage bags. I grabbed my shoes from the entryway, my charger from the nightstand, my shampoo from the shower. I found a box in her closet and filled it with the things I'd bought for the apartment: a lamp, a set of coasters, a framed photo of us from a trip we took to the mountains. I looked at the photo for a second, then dropped it in the box face down. It took me an hour to pack everything. I made 3 trips to my car, carrying bags and boxes down the narrow stairwell. On the last trip, I stood in the middle of the living room and looked around. The space felt empty now, even though most of her stuff was still there. I realized how little I'd actually brought into this relationship. A few bags, a few boxes, a few pieces of furniture that didn't even matter. I pulled out my phone and typed out a text. I rewrote it twice, trying to find the right words. Finally, I settled on something simple. Good news, you don't have to move in anymore. I hit send and locked the door behind me. I dropped her key in the mailbox on my way out. Update 1. I drove to the new apartment. It was almost midnight. The building was quiet. I carried everything upstairs in 2 trips, dumping the bags and boxes in the middle of the empty living room. I didn't unpack. I just sat on the floor with my back against the wall and stared at the space. The landlord had left a bottle of wine and a note on the counter. "Welcome home," it said. I didn't open the wine. I went to sleep on the floor with my jacket as a pillow. My phone started blowing up around 1:30 a.m. I ignored it. I turned it on silent and left it face down on the floor. I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying the moment at the bar, the look on her face, the sound of her voice when she said those words. I told myself I'd done the right thing. I told myself I deserved better, but it didn't stop the tightness in my chest. The next morning, I finally looked at my phone. 23 missed calls, 15 texts. Most of them were from Maya. The first few were angry. "Where are you? Why did you take all your stuff? You're being ridiculous." Then they shifted. "I'm sorry. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. Please call me back." The last one, sent at 4:37 a.m., just said, "Please." There were also messages from friends who'd been at the bar. One of them told me Maya had stayed for another hour after I left, acting like nothing had happened. She'd ordered another drink and kept laughing with Brandon. Then, around midnight, she'd suddenly gotten quiet. She'd checked her phone, seen my text, and her face had gone pale. She'd tried calling me 3 times right there at the table. When I didn't answer, she'd ordered an Uber and left without saying goodbye to anyone. Another friend said they'd gotten a call from Maya at 1:15 a.m. She was crying, asking if they knew where I was, if they'd talk to me. She kept saying, "He took everything. He just left. All his stuff is gone." The friend had asked what happened and Maya just kept repeating, "I messed up. I messed up so bad." I didn't respond to any of the messages. I got up, unpacked my clothes, and drove to a furniture store. I bought a bed, a couch, a table, and 2 chairs. I paid extra for same-day delivery. The sales guy asked if I was moving in with someone. I said, "No, just me." He nodded and processed the order. By the time the sun set, the apartment looked like someone actually lived there. I sat on the new couch and stared at the wall. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. Update 2, Maya kept calling. I didn't answer. She texted. I didn't respond. She showed up at my job on Monday. The receptionist called me and said there was someone in the lobby asking for me. I looked at the security camera feed on the computer. It was Maya. She was pacing back and forth, checking her phone, looking at the elevator every time the doors opened. I told the receptionist to say I wasn't available. Maya left after 20 minutes. On Tuesday, she sent me an email. It was long. She apologized for what she said at the bar. She said she'd been drinking, that she was stressed about work, that she didn't mean any of it. She said she loved me. She said she wanted to talk. She said she understood if I needed space, but she hoped I'd give her a chance to explain. I read it twice, then deleted it. On Wednesday, one of her friends called me. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious. The friend, someone I'd met a few times but never really talked to, told me Maya was a mess. She said Maya had been crying for days, that she wasn't eating, that she felt terrible about what happened. The friend asked if I'd consider meeting with Maya, just to talk. I told her no. The friend paused, then said, "She really does love you, you know?" I said, "If that's love, I don't want it," and hung up. By Thursday, the group chat with our mutual friends was blowing up. People were taking sides. Some of them said I overreacted, that I should have just talked to Maya instead of leaving. Others said what she did was unforgivable, that public humiliation like that wasn't something you just forgive. One person pointed out that this wasn't the first time Maya had made comments about me in front of people. Another person said they'd always thought she was too harsh with me. Someone shared a screenshot of an old text where Maya had called me safe but boring when talking to a friend. The chat eventually got so heated that someone left, then someone else, and by Friday the whole thing was dead. Maya's coworker, the one who'd smirked at the bar, sent me a message. I didn't even know he had my number. He said, "Hey man, for what it's worth, that was brutal. You didn't deserve that." I didn't respond, but I appreciated it. It felt like validation, like I wasn't crazy for walking away. On Friday afternoon, my sister called. She'd heard about what happened through a mutual friend. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. She said, "Good. You deserve better than someone who treats you like that." Then she paused and said, "Mom would be proud of you." My mom had passed away 3 years earlier. She'd always told me to never settle for someone who didn't respect me. I hadn't thought about that until my sister said it. I felt my throat tighten. Update 3. I focused on settling into the apartment. I hung pictures. I bought groceries. I cooked meals for myself in a kitchen that felt like mine. I went to work, came home, and watched TV on the couch without worrying about someone making comments about my job or my clothes or my life. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was lonely. On Saturday, exactly 1 week after the bar incident, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "Yeah, it's me." Maya's voice came through the speaker, shaky and small. "Please, can we talk?" I didn't respond right away. I stood there staring at the intercom, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her stand outside until she gave up and left. Part of me wanted to go down there and hear what she had to say, just to see if there was anything that could justify what she'd done. "I'm not letting you in," I said finally. "I know," she said. "I just want to talk. Please, just 5 minutes." I grabbed my keys and walked downstairs. When I opened the door, she was standing on the steps, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. Her eyes were red. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked smaller than I remembered, like something in her had collapsed. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said. She looked at me, then down at her feet. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. I was drunk. I didn't mean what I said. I was trying to be funny and it came out wrong. And I know that's not an excuse, but I need you to know I didn't mean it." "You said it loud enough for everyone to hear," I said. "That wasn't an accident." "I know," she said. "I know, I messed up so bad and I don't know how to fix it." "You can't," I said. She looked up at me, eyes wide. "What?" "You can't fix it," I said. "You humiliated me in front of our friends. You made me feel like I wasn't good enough for you, like I was some burden you had to carry. And the worst part is, that wasn't the first time. You've been making comments like that for months. I just ignored it because I thought that's what you do when you love someone. You let things slide, but I'm done sliding." "I didn't mean any of that," she said. "I was just stressed and I took it out on you and that's not fair and I'm sorry." "You're sorry because I left," I said, "not because you hurt me. You're sorry because you're alone now and you don't know how to handle it. But that's not my problem anymore." She started crying. "Please," she said, "please don't do this. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to therapy. I'll stop drinking. I'll be better. Just give me a chance." I looked at her. I thought about all the times I'd convinced myself that her comments were jokes, that her comparisons to other men didn't matter, that her embarrassment of me was just her way of coping with stress. I thought about the apartment I'd signed for us, the life I'd imagined, the future I'd been building in my head. And then I thought about the moment at the bar, the look on her face, the sound of her voice when she said those words. "No," I said. "What?" she said. "No," I repeated. "I'm not giving you another chance. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering when the next public humiliation is coming. I'm not going to keep pretending that your love is enough when it comes with conditions and insults and comparisons to men who don't even matter." "You're being cruel," she said. "I'm being honest," I said. "For the first time in this relationship, I'm being completely honest. And the truth is, I deserve better. I deserve someone who doesn't make me feel small, someone who doesn't use me as a punchline, someone who's proud of me, not embarrassed by me." She stared at me. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said. "I really do." She wiped her eyes. "What am I supposed to do now?" "I don't know," I said. "Figure it out. That's not my job anymore." "I love you," she said. "No, you don't," I said. "You love the idea of having someone around. You love having someone to compare to other men. You love having someone who won't fight back when you tear them down. But that's not love. That's control. And I'm done being controlled." She left after that. I watched her walk down the street until she turned the corner and disappeared. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat on the couch. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight. But underneath all of that, I felt something else. Relief. Over the next few weeks, I heard through mutual friends that Maya wasn't doing well. She'd stopped showing up to group hangouts. She'd been calling people at odd hours, asking if they'd talk to me, if they knew how I was doing. One friend told me she'd shown up at their apartment unannounced, drunk, rambling about how she ruined the best thing in her life. They had to call her an Uber and make sure she got home safely. Her coworker, the one who'd smirked at the bar, stopped talking to her. He told someone in the group that he'd lost respect for her after seeing how she treated me. Other people started distancing themselves too. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd been harsh with. She had a habit of making cutting comments, of putting people down to make herself feel better. People had tolerated it because she was charismatic, because she knew how to charm her way out of consequences. But once the mask cracked, people started seeing her differently. Brandon, the guy she'd been laughing with at the bar, apparently asked her out a week after I left. She said yes. They went on 2 dates. On the second date, he made a comment about her job, something about how marketing wasn't a real career. She got upset and left. She texted our mutual friend later that night saying, "Now I know how he felt." The friend told me about it. I didn't respond. Her job situation got worse. She'd been struggling with her workload for months, and without the emotional outlet of our relationship, she started falling apart. She missed deadlines. She snapped at her manager during a meeting. Eventually, she was put on a performance improvement plan, the corporate equivalent of a warning shot. She told one of our mutual friends that she felt like her life was falling apart, that nothing was going right, that she didn't know how to fix any of it. I didn't feel bad for her. I didn't feel vindicated either. I just felt distant, like I was watching someone I used to know spiral from a safe place far away. I'd moved on. I was dating again, casually. I was spending time with friends who actually respected me. I was building a life that felt like mine. One of my coworkers set me up on a blind date with her cousin. Her name was Sarah. She was a nurse. We met for coffee. She asked what I did, and when I told her I was an X-ray technician, she smiled and said, "That's so cool. You literally help save lives every day." It was the first time in 2 years someone had said something positive about my job without a hint of sarcasm. We talked for 3 hours. I didn't think about Maya once. Final closure: 3 months after the bar incident, I ran into Maya at a coffee shop. She was sitting alone in the corner, staring at her laptop. She looked thinner, tired. She saw me before I could leave. She waved. I hesitated, then walked over. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said. "How are you?" she asked. "Good," I said. "How are you?" she asked. "Good," I said. "Really good, actually," she nodded. "That's good. I'm happy for you." There was a long silence. Finally, she said, "I've been in therapy." "That's good," I said. "Yeah," she said. "Yeah," she said. "My therapist says I have a lot of issues with control and self-worth. Apparently, I put people down to make myself feel better. I didn't realize I was doing it. Or maybe I did and I just didn't care. I don't know." "I'm glad you're working on it," I said. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "For real this time. Not because I want you back, but because you deserve to hear it. What I did at the bar was cruel. What I did for months before that was cruel. You didn't deserve any of it. You were good to me, and I threw it away because I was too wrapped up in my own insecurity to see it. I'm sorry." I looked at her. She looked like she meant it, but I also knew that apologies didn't erase damage. They didn't undo the nights I'd spent convincing myself I was good enough. The moments I'd swallowed my pride to avoid conflict, the public humiliation that still replayed in my head sometimes when I was alone. "I appreciate that," I said. "I really do. But it doesn't change anything." "I know," she said. "I just needed you to know." "Okay," I said. She nodded. "Are you seeing anyone?" I thought about lying, but there was no point. "Yeah," I said. "Her name's Sarah." Maya's face flickered with something I couldn't quite read. "Is she good to you?" "She is," I said. "She treats me like I matter." Maya looked down at her laptop. "I'm glad." We sat in silence for another moment. Then she said, "For what it's worth, I think about that night a lot. What I said. How I said it. I replay it in my head, and every time I wish I could take it back. But I can't, and I have to live with that." "Yeah," I said. "You do." She looked up at me. "Do you ever think about it?" "Sometimes," I said, "but less and less." "That's good," she said. "You deserve to move on." "So do you," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm trying." "Take care of yourself," I said. "You too," she said. I left the coffee shop and walked back to my car. The sun was setting. The sky was pink and orange, the kind of color that makes everything feel cinematic. I thought about the apartment, the keys, the bar. I thought about the moment I'd walked away, the moment I'd chosen myself over someone who didn't value me, and I realized something I hadn't fully understood until right then. I wasn't desperate. I was never desperate. I was just wrong about her. And now I wasn't anymore. I drove home. The apartment was quiet. The couch was comfortable. The fridge had food I'd bought. The walls had pictures I'd hung. The space was mine. And for the first time in years, that was enough. Later that night, Sarah called. We talked about our day. She told me about a patient who'd brought his dog to the hospital as a therapy animal. I told her about a coworker's terrible joke that somehow made everyone laugh. She asked if I wanted to come over for dinner on Friday. I said yes. When I hung up, I looked around the apartment and smiled. The keys to the place I'd rented for Maya and me were still sitting on my kitchen counter. I picked them up, felt their weight in my hand one last time, then dropped them in the drawer with the other miscellaneous things I'd never need again. Some keys open doors. Some just remind you of the ones you're glad you never walked through.